We've got softball All-Americans. We've got some wrestlings, including a lineup, and Mason Rudolph and Jaylen Warren becoming household names. Not me. That's Bleacher Report. But I'm glad they said it.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at All Day State. Today, we are partially brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment matter more with FanDuel, because right now, new customers get $150 back in bonus bets with any $5 winning bet. Do not miss out on your chance to get in on the action. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Meanwhile, we get to roll in some football talk, right? And this football talk is permeating around the NFL. Bleacher Report recently came out with an article of the top 6 names that could become household names by the end of the season. It was nice to see not only Mason Rudolph in there, but Jaylen Warren was in there as well. And you also got to give a little bit of a shout out to Ben Sinnott, the tight end from Kansas State. I too believe that he will go from a backup role to being a predominantly starter mold that everybody will become familiar with. But when it comes to Jaylen Warren and Mason Rudolph, it's easy to say, of course, they should, or maybe they could. So let's break down a little bit as to why, tangibly, it makes a little bit more sense. First of all, you can start off for Mason Rudolph at the Tennessee Titans simply because of the nucleus they have at wide receiver, right? Everyone's going to call DeAndre Hopkins old because he's 31, and for years in wide receiver, that is pretty up there. He also caught 75 passes for 1,057 yards last year at 14.1 yards per completion and 7 touchdowns. So clearly, the guy that we grew up watching is still got plenty left in the tank. Not only that, but it's clearly going to be very beneficial for the locker room alongside somebody like a Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd was somebody that we saw with the Cincinnati Bengals for years, and he was always revolving around being in between one guy, 2 guys, sometimes a 3 guy. He's an NFL veteran, and last season alone, he had 667 yards off 67 grabs and 10 yards per catch and another couple touchdowns. They also have Calvin Ridley, one of the best Jacksonville Jaguars weapons that they could utilize for Trevor Lawrence is now gone. And last season, he came back from an injury, and the biggest difficulty he had was drops, right? He had a decent number of drops. Otherwise, he may have put up over 1,500 yards. But he still, even with the drops, was able to put up over 1,000 yards and 13.4 yards per completion and 8 touchdowns. Treylon Burks, the Arkansas stud. I know some Tennessee Titan fans have not necessarily given up on Treylon Burks really finding his groove in the NFL, but the upside is still absolutely insane. I mean, if you look at what Arkansas has done since he left, it's been, I don't want to say a cataclysmic decline, but it's been a steady decline for sure. And then you got to take into consideration what Will Levis, and this was mentioned in the Bleacher Report article, he was one of the hottest quarterback names in all of the NFL last year, especially up-and-coming new guys, after his first few starts, until he wasn't. Right, his first 4 starts, he put up 130-plus passer rating, and then it was a dramatic drop-off to below 80 passer rating, while only completing just under 60% of his passes in his last 5 starts. So the beginning, great, right? The end, not great. You got to have a little bit of consistency here, or somebody like Mason Rudolph is going to be primed to take the job. And here's another benefit for Will Levis. It's not like Mason Rudolph is coming in to instantaneously steal your job. Mason Rudolph is going to do everything in his power to help you. Of course, he's going to help himself along the way, but he's not going to be a negative issue for Will Levis or anybody else, because the situation, and this might be the biggest thing, because Brian Callahan is a quarterback guy, played at UCLA, got into the Denver Broncos early, was with the Denver Broncos for the last Super Bowl. I know that Derek Carr has expressed how instrumental Brian has been into his development in the NFL and his ability to sustain longevity in the NFL. Not to mention his dad. We all likely remember his dad. He's a legend in his own right. Now, I personally recall when Bill Callahan was hired by Nebraska, I thought he was going to do some pretty big things in Nebraska, but the NFL was more his thing, which is why he's viewed by some as one of the golden standards in the O-lineman department for NFL coach. Now, this is coming from NFL analyst Brian Baldinger. And now Brian Callahan has hired his dad, the legend, Bill Callahan, to be the O-line coach in Tennessee. So the continuity is going to start off pretty quickly. And as far as getting advice on what did you do here and what's the best situation for this outcome, his dad's going to be able to walk him through that. This is a more calm, right, Southern family type atmosphere that will allow Mason Rudolph to flourish. So it's not like he's coming in to steal Will Levis's job. Will's going to have every opportunity afforded to him. Brian Callahan does like Will Levis, but if he goes through what he went through last year and he has a massive drop-off, then it's only going to be a matter of time before they give Mason a shot. And I don't think that this far into his NFL career, he's going to be willing to let his shot fall by the wayside. Jaylen Warren, of course, seeing the two together in Pittsburgh was amazing, but this is part of the reason why Mason wanted out of Pittsburgh, even though there was a considerable number of Steelers fans that wanted him to stay. It wasn't even necessarily about the financial side of it for Mason Rudolph. It was about a better opportunity and just getting in the right spot. Well, if Mason's finding his potential right spot, then Jaylen Warren seemingly is already there. If the 1,163 yards at 5.1 yards per clip and 5 touchdowns in the last, 2 years doesn't do enough speaking, then maybe his 5.3 and 784 yards just alone last season, that might do it for you. But if not, maybe another 584 yards receiving will do the trick. But if that is not enough, then surely the Steelers refusing to pick up the fifth-year option for Najee Harris might seal the deal for you. Now, this feels like it's only a matter of time situation. I do think Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren are a phenomenally deadly duo, but no one's really paying for 2 starting running backs anymore. They're not paying the prices for 2 starting running backs in a league, especially at a position that is viewed as not as big of a necessity anymore to get early on in the draft. Getting a 3rd-round running back is unfortunately become viewed as not only normal, but you can easily find a guy in that range. You got to be an Ollie Gordon level guy to fall into the 1st round as a running back nowadays. That's just how it is. It's to lay the land. But that right now does benefit Jaylen Warren. This whole thing that they've had going on in Pittsburgh, it's a wild time, right? I don't get it. I don't fully understand it. I definitely don't agree with it. But I do know that it could benefit Jaylen Warren in this situation. So those are the guys that Oklahoma State country is obviously familiar with, but hopefully NFL country starts to get much more comfortable with in this coming season. Thanks to Bleacher Report for putting this thing out here, but I don't think it would have been put out if it was completely outlandish or impossible. Mason Rudolph is prepared for this opportunity, just like Jaylen Warren. Obviously, if he can stay 100% healthy, he's more than prepared to take over for Najee Harris, or else they would have picked up that 5th-year option. So if both stay healthy and Will Levis has a little bit of a downturn, these are 2 guys that we'll definitely be talking about. And I do like throwing Ben Simmons in there. The tight end from Kansas State's a bad mamma jamma. I would like to see him get that respect in the NFL as well. Then we got to shift over to wrestling. We just added another All-American from Michigan, so we get to talk about him. And Flow Wrestling has kind of given us a little bit of a sneak peek as what the lineup could be, or at least how they view it. We'll see if we can't make it make a little bit of sense, just like you can make a lot of sense by getting hooked up with FanDuel today. We're in this time frame of trying to capitalize, so you should capitalize in your wallet department as well. Right now, we're bringing you a shot to grab the biggest win of your wallet this season. Right now, new customers get $150 back in bonus bets with any $5 winning bet. That's 150 bones back that you can bet on, player props, over, under, points, spreads, Heisman, NBA titles, NHL titles, and more. Make sure that you go now. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make every single playoff shot count in the potential piggy bank department. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon today because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Now, hopefully, it's only a matter of time before they up their game when it comes to the Heisman odds. There's no way to bet on Ollie Gordon in certain departments. There's no way to bet on Oklahoma State going to the college football playoff. We're going to have more, all right? We're going to have more, surely, at some point in time that can make us some money, honey. But let's shift a little bit over here to wrestling. Have you noticed the other day, Oklahoma State did bring in another All-American, Cam Amin from Michigan. Now, whenever you look at the fact that we have brought in Caleb Fish, Cam Amin, and you also brought in Dean Hamidi, and they're all 165-pounders, it definitely means that somebody's going to get some squeeze in here, right? There's no way that you can bring in this many 165-pound dudes and then have enough room for everybody. So Flow Wrestling put out what their projection is going to be for the lineup, and it kind of does spell some of it out. I was curious as how they were going to do that 165-pound thing. Of course, they're going to have wrestle-offs, but it appears as though that most likely Cam Amin will take the 165-pound spot. Or it could be Teague Travis. Or it could be Dean Hamidi. And you kind of wonder where Caleb Fish fits in the bill here. But we know Cam Amin went 3-0 against Dean Hamidi. And we know he went 4-1 against Caleb Fish. So the 165-pound weight should likely go to Cam Amin, unless there's going to be a little bit of a discrepancy on some of the other guys' weights, right? Because you still have Teague Travis coming over from Stiller High School, who's right around that 157, 165-ish range. And then you have freshman Braden Thompson at 174. So let's look at what Flow Wrestling put out. All right, 125 pounds, number 9 ranked Troy Bradley. 133 pounds, the Okie, Cale Hughes from right up the road. Number 11 ranked Tegan Jamison at 149. Number 18 ranked Jordan Williams at 157. Number 12 ranked Teague Travis at 165. Number 8 ranked Cam Amin at 174. Number 5 ranked Dean Hamidi at 184. The number 2 ranked Dustin Plott at 197. Number 21 ranked Luke Serber. And then, obviously, the 285er will be Wyatt Hendrickson. This is going to be a fun time. Now, what's exciting is probably just that battle that everyone's going to be having between 150 and 174-pound range. Those guys are going to have a whale of a time, and that's David Taylor's natural weight. So you know that he wanted to low down on that class because he also knows that if you're around a certain weight, you're typically going to be walking. You're going to be walking around significantly heavier. And then when you get into the course of the Oklahoma State offseason programs and things of that nature, we will have some guys that naturally shed some weight. And then you're going to have a guy like Dustin Plott who just continuously puts on weight. So it's going to be really exciting to see how this all shakes out. There's not going to be any shortage of talent, right? I think that everybody in the country is very, very well aware that when you return the team that Oklahoma State did, and you add in a Wyatt Hendrickson, you add in Amin or a Hamidi or even a Fish to what is already a pretty good recruiting base that we have in that locker room. Again, the objective this season could be much more than a top 8 finish, top 7 finish, top 5 finish. This could be a time where we see Oklahoma State go from that 8, 7, 6-ish range to instantaneously being back in the 2 or 3 range where we should be. I think that would mean a lot. I think that would say a lot about David Taylor, because I don't necessarily think that we'll be able to do that year one with the guys he's bringing in. And with the staff that he has, I do find it very plausible that Oklahoma State wrestling could find itself back at the top of the pedestal. Maybe not this year, and maybe not even necessarily next year, but 2026 and beyond. Oklahoma State wrestling is going to be competing for national titles. Unless something crazy happens, it appears as though that's the right trajectory. And we're not going to have any shortage in recruiting coming up, especially with David Taylor at the helm, just like we're not going to have any shortage of people wanting to enter the transfer portal because of David Taylor. Guys, if he turns this thing around real quick, this might be, Chad Weiberg's introduction to, hey, let me do this daggone thing because I can do the daggone thing. Now, we all know when it comes to doing the daggone thing, the softball team gets it done in spades. As we prepare for this World Series matchup coming up later on this week, the storylines with Walton versus Gajewski, that's going to be fun. The All-Americans, Florida, the All-Americans, Oklahoma State, of course, that's going to be fun. Everybody around the country by now likely knows Lexi Kilfoyle. But one of the reasons I kind of wanted to focus on this a little bit is because somebody sent me something yesterday. And it was, hey, pitcher A, pitcher B. Which one of these two would you pick? And I didn't know if it was some kind of trick question my buddy Shannon sent to me, but right, I'm looking it over. It's like, okay, well, the ERA is pretty much the same. The whip's about the same. The amount of home runs, Ks, walks, all of that's pretty close to the same, except for strikeouts. K's department was significantly different. And I was like, well, that's easy. Pitcher B has almost 100 more strikeouts than pitcher A. So naturally, you go with pitcher B since everything else, ERA, walks, all of that is pretty comparable. And then my buddy Shannon wrote me back and he said, yeah, that's Kelly Maxwell at OU as opposed to Oklahoma State. And I was like, oh, no. So she had almost 100 more strikeouts at Oklahoma State. And if you look at the number of innings and all that, it was actually ridiculously comparable. So hats off to Lexi Kilfoyle becoming a first-team All-American, especially with all the turmoil that was coming into the season in regards to the pitching staff, right? Nationally, it was, well, is Oklahoma State going to be able to do anything with their pitching staff? So on and so forth. Lexi Kilfoyle, she answered those questions. She has a 26-3 record, has a 1.6 ERA, and then you look at the fact that she's number one in the Big 12, the same conference that Kelly Maxwell is in. It makes it all that much sweeter. She leads the Big 12 in victories, leads the Big 12 in shutouts. This postseason has brought her even more recognition than she was already getting. And then we also had Carly Godwin, who was the 2023 Gatorade Player of the Year in North Carolina. Of course she's it, right? I think she was 51 extra base hits, 15 bombs throughout the course of the season. She's a cleanup hitter, and she's batting .344 and 13 doubles. And then you have a Rosie Davis, another freshman, hitting .344 for Oklahoma State. She's got 8 home runs, 33 RBIs, and this is another one. If you want to go from Davis to Davis, whenever, I just had a brain fart. Anyways, we had an All-American second baseman that was a freshman that decided to, Brianna Davis, that was it. So when Brianna Davis left, a lot of us were kind of scratching our head because she was one of the biggest recruits that we had ever gotten at Oklahoma State. You thought that was going to be pretty debilitating for this team in the middle infield. Rosie Davis shows up as a true freshman, and she said, hold my beer. We're not going to have any kind of drop-off. We're not even going to hear that nonsense. I've got this. And they joined Talon Edwards as the only freshman in the Kenny Gajewski era to pick up freshman All-American honors. Speaking of Talon Edwards, I know she battled a little bit of injury stuff, but it just comes down to the statistics. We all know Talon Edwards is an All-American level individual, which is why she won the award last season. She missed a couple games, but we can visibly see when Talon Edwards is at her best, she's hands down, unequivocally one of the best third basemen in all of the country. We're very blessed and spoiled to have her. And I cannot wait to see what this World Series brings. And the more that Lexi's able to continue to do, I think the more we'll have opportunities to get some of these stars transferring already, right? The Washington ace, she's on the move. Baylor's bad Mama Jamma ace, she's now on the move. I think it would be interesting, right, to see what happens with Kyra Aycock whenever you do have some of these heavy hitters that will want to come at least take visits to Oklahoma State. There's never going to be a shortage for Kenny Gajewski in getting girls to Stillwater, Oklahoma to be a part of what we're building. You got people like Kelly that leave and they go backwards. So you might as well not go backwards. Come to Oklahoma State and excel forward. All right, y'all. That's all we're going to have for this one right here. I got to go send my daughter off to the grandparents for the summer. She's packed up. I just got to do the dad movie time stuff. All right. All right, y'all. Well, I reckon you know the drill here. As always, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Like it if you like the daggone thing. Dislike it if you don't. That's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe as we're gearing up for football season, giveaways, meet and greets, the whole 9 yards. It's going to be a good time. All righty, y'all. My podcasting folks, you know the drill. Do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave the reviews. Later, my taters.